Sydney Brownstone with us from KUOW. Sydney, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're here, of course, to talk about this article that you broke yesterday. It's regarding Seattle business owner Dave Meinert. Now, for people who aren't familiar with Meinert, explain to us who he is.
David Meinert is a major figure in the Seattle nightlife scene, in restaurants, and politics.
How do we make sure that doesn't happen again?
He's been around for several decades. He co-owns a number of very popular restaurants on Capitol Hill. He co-owns the Comet. I believe he owns Lost Lake. He owns the 5 Point. He is also pretty outspoken about some political issues like the $15 minimum wage and the head tax, but he's a name that most people know.
And how long were you working on this story?
I worked on this story on and off for about 6 months. The women who first came to me said that they were motivated to speak out because of similar stories. Bill Cosby among them, Harvey Weinstein. Several of the women I interviewed expressed doubt over what to call their experiences even. They weren't sure if it was sexual assault, or was it rape, or was it something in between, or was it harassment, was it sexual misconduct. These are women who are in their 40s, 50s. The majority of them didn't say anything to the authorities at the time. One of the women I interviewed said she buried it for a decade.
All the accusations are different.
That's true.
But they all seem to have sort of a similar vein to their story. Can you explain what that is?
The allegations appear to identify a pattern of behavior, alleged behavior. It's entitled, it's aggressive. In a couple of similarities where women said that Meinert assaulted them in a car, and all of them felt that they couldn't speak up or were afraid to speak up because of his position in the city.
He posted this message on Facebook, and it reads, "Although the story contains some elements of truth, many of the accusations are exaggerated, misleading, or in some cases simply false. It's true that I tried to kiss someone who rebuffed me. I have been pushy and continue to make advances when I should have understood they were not welcome, and I know these things are wrong, and I am sorry, and I want to apologize. However, the story also includes accusations that have been fully investigated and rejected years ago. The case was closed, and the prosecutor declined to prosecute because the claims were simply insufficient and not credible."
As for the 2007 case that he references, the prosecutor did not say that the accuser was not credible. She deemed the case legally insufficient, and the reason she deemed the case legally insufficient was because, in her words, there wasn't a clear lack of consent expressed.
It's a visceral description, right, that you gave, and we all noticed it reading it. It was, I think it allowed the reader to almost feel what the victim was feeling at the time.
I've heard from some people who say that the story is really graphic and that they've cried or that they've gotten nauseated. And I'm actually really glad that they're having that reaction, as perverse as that may seem. I tried not to play anything up. I wanted to play it very straight, just put the facts out there, put the details out there, and leave it to the reader to decide.
Alyssa Hahn there reporting. Brownstone says among the 5 accusers, only 2 reported their allegations to police. Prosecutors found one case had insufficient evidence. The other was past the statute of limitations.